In 1987, 16-year-old Heather West went missing without a trace from her parents' home on Cromwell Street in Gloucester, England. With no other leads, detectives suspected Heather's father Fred and her mother Rose were to blame. According to biography, Fred West had a sordid history, which included accusations of child molestation and criminal convictions for petty theft. Fred was also the primary suspect in at least 8 different assaults, though his connection was never proven. Rose had met and begun dating Fred while she was a teenager, though at the extreme disapproval of her parents. Since both of Rose's parents had struggled with mental illness and violence, it led Rose to develop her own aggressive nature and explosive temper. The Wests, traumatized by their own past and mental illness, then subjected their children, both biological and adopted, to their combined hostility and abuse. This abuse also extended to other young vulnerable women. The results were horrific.
The children made 31 hospital visits over a 20-year period.
Amid the investigation into Heather's disappearance, coupled with the unexplained disappearances of Fred's daughter Charmaine and her mother Rena in 1971, authorities were given an anonymous tip that the Wests were abusing their 13-year-old daughter Louise. Police conducted a search of the West home in August 1992. While the officers found enough evidence to charge Fred and Rose with the severe abuse of a minor, the case against the Wests did not lead to any convictions. The West children, who were the primary witnesses, refused to cooperate with the prosecutors. Law enforcement started strongly suspecting the Wests were also responsible for the disappearance of Charmaine and Heather, which led authorities to obtain another search warrant for the West home and property. According to The Independent, on February 25, 1994, Fred and Rose West were both arrested for Heather's disappearance. The following day, authorities found human remains in the West yard, which were later determined to be those of Heather. 3 days later, 2 more bodies were uncovered in the garden. These were identified as Allison Chambers and Shirley Robinson. As reported by The Independent, Shirley Robinson was 18 years old and pregnant with Fred's child when she disappeared in 1978. Prior to her disappearance, she had been renting a room in the West home. The U.S. Sun reports Allison Chambers was a runaway who was employed as the West nanny when she vanished in 1979. When authorities interrogated Fred about Chambers and Robinson, he confessed to killing them both and burying their remains in the yard. He also claimed that Rose did not participate in or have any knowledge of the crimes, a claim that Rose repeatedly corroborated.
Fred would talk, and sometimes it was very difficult to sort the wheat out from the chaff.
While in police custody, Fred confessed that a total of 9 women were buried in his cellar and in the yard surrounding his home, although he did not reveal all of their identities. According to The Independent, in addition to Robinson, Chambers, and Heather, authorities eventually identified the other victims as Carol Ann Cooper, Linda Goff, Shirley Hubbard, Juanita Mott, Lucy Partington, and Therese Siegenthaler. According to the U.S. Sun, Carol Ann Cooper and Shirley Hubbard were only 15 years old at the time of their murders in 1973 and 1974, respectively. Linda Goff and Juanita Mott were tenants in the West home when they were separately killed in 1973 and 1975. Lucy Partington was abducted and murdered by the Wests in 1973, and Therese Siegenthaler is believed to have been abducted while hitchhiking. According to the BBC, she was murdered and buried under the floor of the West cellar in 1974. Per biography, Fred also revealed that Charmaine, his first wife Rena, and his former lover Ann McFall, who had vanished in 1967 while 8 months pregnant, were dead and buried at other locations. Charmaine's remains were found buried at the West's previous home on Midland Road in Gloucester, while the bodies of Rena and her unborn child were found at nearby Letterbox Field. McFall's remains were exhumed at another location known as Fingerpost Field. Although Rose maintained her innocence, she was charged with 10 counts of murder. Fred was charged with 12 counts of murder. However, he died by suicide on January 1, 1995, while awaiting trial.
He should have appeared in court and been dealt with by the courts, and he cheated that.
Rose's trial began on October 3, 1995. Several witnesses testified that she participated in the abduction and sexual abuse of many of the victims. However, it was Rose's own testimony during cross-examination and her behavior on the stand which ultimately sealed her fate. Rose was convicted on 10 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years, though her sentence was later modified to a whole life order, which made her ineligible for parole. Rose filed unsuccessful appeals in 1996 and 2000, and as of 2002, she remains incarcerated for her crimes. Although authorities recovered 12 bodies in their search for the West's victims, the U.S. Sun reports that Fred confessed to killing 30 people. However, no other information was found implicating the Wests in any additional murders. For a recent documentary, the crew followed a handler with his cadaver dog to one of the locations where the West victims had been buried. Although the dog appeared to indicate that there may have been one or more remaining corpses on the property, authorities have not verified this claim. The West's former home, now known as the House of Horrors, was demolished in October 1996. Biography reports that the property remains uninhabited and serves as a walking path to the town center. If you or someone you know may be the victim of child abuse, please contact the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-48-CHILD, 1-800-422-4453, or contact their live chat services.